Hello, everyone, and welcome to our ATP 7th anniversary online conference. Today is day one. Happy anniversary to every one of us, and thank you so much for joining us. I have some wonderful guests in the house today. For those on Instagram, you may not be able to see my guests, but you will hear their voices. Uh, but before I bring my guests on, I just want to um, encourage us to share the videos and make sure we pin it, and I'm going to do it as well. So welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome. Just give me a couple of minutes to share the video and so all our groups and make sure everybody can see. So but feel free to send us your anniversary messages and feel free uh to invite your friends and everyone to join us. So today is going to be wonderful, and I'm just going to share the videos to make sure everybody can see us in the next few minutes. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to um, our conference. Yes. Okay, I think I've done that. Welcome, 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 everybody. I'm just sharing the video, just a couple of minutes. I have a wonderful special guest in the house, so you'll see him very soon. So, in the meantime, let's just share our videos. And today is a conference, so I'm not going to be the only one talking. Okay, I think I've done that sharing. And then I just want to make sure it is pinned to our various groups and everybody can see it. So, our Instagram people, welcome. I can see you. All right. Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome. Okay, I can see myself. So, welcome. Feel free to invite friends and family. Feel free to send us goodwill messages. We appreciate it. And feel free to start dropping any questions you may have. I will do a little bit of intro about what we're going to be talking about before I bring in my guests. Okay, I think I'm done with all the sharing. Okay, so once again, I want to say welcome everybody to our ATP 7th anniversary online conference. And as you can see, for those of you on Facebook, we're talking about meeting the SDG 3. I hope you all know what SDG is. That's what we call Sustainable Development Goal. And the third one has to do with our health, the health. And of course, being asked the pediatricians, we're talking about the health of our children, especially during this period where there's so much economic recession and everybody is really, cost of living is really up. And of course, cost of healthcare is really up. Okay, my other guest is also available, thank God. All right, so okay, let me see the solo before I introduce my guest. Okay, so today we're going to be talking to two pediatricians. So we have two aspects of this conference. Today is day one, and tomorrow is going to be day two. And today being day one, we're actually going to talk about health issues, and I have two wonderful pediatricians in the house. They're going to be talking to us about what it means for our children to survive in this 21st century. We are going to talk about child survival because if you know ATP, our mission is to reduce child deaths to zero globally. We're looking forward to that day when no child will die from deaths that are preventable, and that is what we do. All that we do, our health education information online, our outreaches, it is looking forward to that day when no child will die from preventable causes of that. So we're going to look at what the health perspectives from the pediatrician's perspectives, and maybe information for us as parents as well. Tomorrow, because we have done a lot of polls and surveys, and most parents are now beginning to know what is right thing to do when it comes to the health of their children. But the main challenge is finance, and people are wondering we want to go to the hospital, we want to do this, but I don't have money. Many times people come to ACP and we talk about, okay, why don't you take this child to hospital? Why don't you do this? And they're like, oh, I can't afford it. I don't have money. So tomorrow we're going to bring the health finance experts. They are going to talk to us about how do we pay for our health without breaking the bank? How do we make sure that our children survive even despite these challenges of our economy and with with our children's despite the financial implications. So they will be talking about that tomorrow. But today we're actually going to talk about why are our children dying? How do we reduce this death? What can we do as parents? So I'm going to be talking to two wonderful pediatricians that I have in the house. So let me introduce my guests to you. And for those of you on Instagram, don't worry, you will hear their voice. So I have two of them. Dr. Can you please put on your okay, lovely. So I have two wonderful pediatricians in the house, and I'll do ladies first. So the first person I will be introducing is Dr. Uche Anene Nzelu. I'm sure you've seen her bio profile. Dr. Uche is a pediatrician. She's also a pediatric intensivist, and she's very committed to the healthcare of our children. And she's been a past fellow of Mandela Washington Fellowship. So she's somebody who has international experience in US, in UK, and so it's an honor for us to have her here today to talk to us about child survivor in this century. Dr. Uche, you are welcome. Please unmute.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I also have with me the most popular pediatrician on Instagram, and that is the noisy Niger pediatrician. I hope I didn't miss it up. Okay, that's Dr. Ayodele Renner. She is also a consultant pediatrician with our Lagos State Ministry of Health, and also committed to health education information, and he does it in a very humorous way so that the message actually it sinks very well, and everybody you can't forget the message because of the way the message has been passed across. And so it's a pleasure, it's an honor for us to have Dr. Renner with us in the house. You are welcome, Dr. Renner.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boyede, and a very, very happy anniversary to the whole ATP family and to the grandmas as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So it's ATP 7th anniversary. ATP started 7 years on the 20th of July to be precise. And the vision then was because I saw a lot of children. I was working in a government hospital in Lutz, precisely. No, I was not even working in Lutz. I've just left Lutz. I was going to go back to Lutz. And I was just in the middle of trying to decide what we're going to do. But then I've always been concerned about the health of Nigerian children. Our children are dying from things that we can treat, things that we can prevent. And I was like, why? And I felt that we as parents were the missing stakeholder that nobody is talking to, and that is why we started, okay, where is the platform for us to talk to parents and to talk to the carers of our children? And that is what birthed Ask the Pediatricians. As the name suggests, ask the pediatricians about the health of your children. Let's see how we can work together to see that our children do not die from things that should not have killed them. Because in other countries, children's death is like it's a national crisis. Like everybody's investigating why should this child die. But in Nigeria, our children die so a lot that we don't even bother about. It's as if it's expected. And like your rap culture will say, in other words, to have a child is a danger. So the fact that you're able to have a child that survives is like, it's like, yeah, that's good. But if the child doesn't survive, then we won't bother. So I really felt that is not how it should be. So we want to talk about how do we stop our children from dying? How do we ensure that our children survive? How do we ensure that they live to their full potential? And that is all our focus on ATP. And most of our conferences, we try to address this issue. So welcome everyone. Feel free to drop your questions, any question you have for my wonderful special guest pediatricians, and I'm sure they will do justice to them. Any question you have, please start dropping them while we start. So I will first ask a few questions to start the ball rolling, and then after that we will be taking your questions. So please maximize our special guests today that you have them to ask all your questions. Okay, so let's start talking. What let's talk about child survival. What does it mean in layman's language? For those of us that in ATP, we are talking to parents, we are talking to caregivers of children. Dr. Uche, what does child survival mean to you as a pediatrician and maybe to us as parents? I don't know, anyhow you want to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boyede. So child survival essentially are those strategies that we employ to ensure that a child lives healthy, physically, socially, mentally, emotionally, and achieves his or her full potential. So any strategy that the strategies that we employ to achieve these things. And it goes beyond just the physical health. When we say someone is a pediatrician and you talk of health, you generally think of malaria, diarrhea, and the rest of them, but it goes beyond that. It's every strategy that is employed to ensure the survival of a child, the healthy living of a child, and not just the absence of illness, but physical, mental, emotional, social well-being of the child, the totality of it. And these include things like housing, and these include things like nutrition, feeding, these include things like education, security, happiness, mental health, everything, the totality of a child's well-being, any strategy that's employed to ensure that the child lives to his full potential. That is what we refer to as child survival strategies.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So we all know what child survival is. Okay, Dr. Renner, so what will you say is the child survival rates of our children? Do you want to tell us about how we are doing currently? Do you think our children let's come down home to Nigeria, Africa. How do you think we're doing in terms of survival?
Thank you very much, Dr. Boyede. I think Dr. Anene gave a very succinct and very apt description of what child survival is. When it comes to Nigeria, now there are various things that most governments and most health agencies use to measure if children are surviving. So there's the under 5 mortality rates, there's the infant mortality rate, and then there's the neonatal mortality rate. So essentially, the neonatal mortality rate is when a child that is born dies before they turn 28 days, meaning that the child hasn't even reached up to a month before the child dies. Mm-hmm. Infant mortality rate is when the child dies before their first birthday, and then under 5 mortality is when a child dies before their 5th birthday. Now, presently as it stands, when it comes to under 5 mortality, Nigeria actually, unfortunately, has the worst statistics worldwide. I don't remember the exact figure now. I mean, I've been quoting this very frequently in recent times, so maybe about 112, but we have the worst. And if you think about it in the context of the fact that there are countries that they are fighting conflicts, like serious conflicts, and yet we don't have figures in terms of under 5 mortality as good as such countries where they are shooting ballistic missiles. And so that brings things into context and says, why is that the situation here? What are we not doing well? That our children cannot even see their 5th birthdays, And that in itself, these indices, we might just say that, well, it's just health indices. But if a society is not taking care of its most vulnerable population, which is the children, then you can be assured that for everybody else, it is if God wills, because how you take care of your children indicates how well your economy is doing, indicates how well the adults are doing. And so it's not just about children, it's about the survival of the whole nation. And I think we do need to do better. These indices are, in all fairness to Nigeria and Nigeria's healthcare system, these indices have been improving since the 60s, since the 70s. So there has been gradual progress, but the progress is not sufficient, and we still need to do better. We actually are even one of the last countries to have eradicated polio, so we do need to do much more than we're currently doing, because we can be so much better than how we are.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Renner. I really understand. I mean, what you're saying. And for parents may not really understand when we talk about these figures, but just like what Dr. Renner is saying is that in countries where they're actually fighting war, like Syria and all those other places, they are still better in terms of their child's deaths. That the number of children that dies every year, they are better than Nigeria. In fact, I think going through some of those statistics recently, Nigeria, we have overtaken India. And you can imagine that India is a country that has over 1 billion population. And if we are having a higher rate than theirs, then that is really frightening. It means a lot of our children are still dying. Now, the question I always want to ask is that why are our children dying? What, and I mean, we're going to, before we even talk about what we're going to do about it, we have to know why first. Why is it that in 2021, when other people are going for better thing to celebrate, Nigeria, we have the worst statistics to celebrate, that we now became the number one country in the entire world with the highest rates of children dying below the age of 5. I mean, it is really sad that that is where we are. And then, but what can we do about it? So, Dr. Uche, do you want to tell us why do you think our children are dying? Why are our children still dying? I mean, why are we the number one in the whole of the entire world when it comes to child death? Why? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, so thank you. I wish I had Noisy Niger Pediatrician's wand. He has a way of swinging his wand in the air, and the grandma speak to him, and then he can get divination from the spirits and the gods, and then we can give specific information about all these things. Anyway, however, I think, in my opinion, it borders on health inequities. And by that, I mean everything that has to do with health and the distribution of it thereof to children. So Dr. Renner had mentioned earlier that the children are the most vulnerable population. And in that regard, they depend on the parents for decisions, for actions. They depend on the governments. They are dependent on. They cannot do anything by themselves. So it means that everything that comes to them has to come through the approval of one person or the other. And when we talk of health inequities, I talk about things like access to health care. So lack of access to health care, availability, so inavailability of health care, affordability, so when healthcare is not affordable, and then the policies that drive these things. Like what I earlier mentioned, health is not just the physical health, but we talk about hunger, nutrition, food safety, security. You would expect that where there is conflict, parents will not be able to go out and fend for their families and provide food, or even get some economic empowerment to be able to afford certain things, including healthcare. So all of these are health inequities. It's such that where vaccines are available for high-income countries and they are unavailable for low-income countries, even when they are available for low-income countries, access to the vaccines are not there. The cold chains are broken down. Things are not preserved properly, so they don't get to the end users in the way they should get there. Pharmaceuticals will skew their production and dissemination of their drugs to high-income countries because they are profit-based. So these health inequities affect us in every way, including when it comes to food insecurity. So someone will produce eggs in a certain country and will have preference to selling it to other richer countries, because that is where you make your maximum profit. So you export even from your country where there is hunger, and you move across continents to other places where they are in assumed plenty. And I'm not saying this because there's no hunger elsewhere and the children aren't suffering elsewhere, but there's this inequality in healthcare that is perpetrated at the government level, even at the international level. Policies that are being made, you make substandard vaccines and ship them to Africa, then you make better vaccines, higher cost, higher quality vaccines, and ship them to the high-income countries. Processes are put in place to ensure quality of health in certain places, and then while neglecting others. And then we do this forgetting that this is a perpetuating cycle, that if measles breaks out in Nigeria, in 24 hours, it can get to you know where I'm talking about, to the other countries. You forget that if Ebola breaks out in Nigeria in 24 hours, it can get to those countries. But these health inequalities, but the thing is that those people then are able to put structures in place to protect their own. And then we continue to suffer from the effect of these things. So I think health inequalities are basically the reason why children suffer. And it covers a lot of things, from from the physical health to every other thing, all the other health indices.
Thank you, Uche. Thank you so much, everyone who are listening. Please ask your questions. I'm not the only one to ask questions, so feel free to ask questions. We're talking, for those who are just joining, we're talking about child survival. We're talking about how our children can live and not die. That is actually what survival is all about. And we're talking about what are the factors contributing to this horrible statistics of our children. But I think, Uche, you've been talking about at the level of the government, the health inequalities, the economy, the policies, and all that. Dr. Renner, can you talk about the level of the parents as far as each? I know you are very good in communicating to parents. Like, what as parents are we doing or not doing that is contributing to these children dying? Because at the end of the day, like somebody I know will say, when you talk about child there, we're talking about figures. It looks like, what are they talking about? But to the mother who lost her child, it is not 1% or 2% of the population. It is 100% to that mother. She has lost her child. So I really want us to talk now at the level of a mother, everyday mom, or dad. What are those things that is making? What are those things that cause the death of their children? Yeah.
Honestly, and it really is. I mean, all three of us here, we have seen it time and time again. Where, and it's a bad feeling where you see a mother lose a child. So, where a child dies. It's one of the worst things that one can witness as a physician. So, when it comes to deaths, and the causes of death of children under the age of 5 years, the newborn period is the period in which most children will die before they turn 5 years of age. Meaning that children who are born in the newborn period, either they are born premature, or those ones who are born in, at full 9 months, but they develop things like what we call sepsis, which is a generalized infection, or they develop jaundice, or they develop what we call asphyxia, in which the child doesn't get enough oxygen during the process, either before birth or during the process of birth, usually during the process of birth, in some circumstances here. And a lot of these conditions can be prevented. That's the newborn period, because that's where the most deaths occur. Now, when it now comes to children that are less than 1 year or less than 5 years, so between that 28 days and 5 years, then you now have things like pneumonia. Pneumonia is the commonest killer of children under 5 years worldwide. Even though in this environment, I begin to think that sometimes maybe diarrhea might be really competing very closely. Diarrhea is when water poo-poo, that the poo-poo is very watery. That is a very terrible killer. And what I find is that a lot of parents don't come on time when it comes to diarrhea, because somebody has told them that it's teething, that the baby is teething. That's why you don't need to go to just give it in powder, just give something. And then by the time they now bring the child to the hospital, the child has lost so much water from the body, and the child is so dehydrated that to even bring the child back from that state of dehydration can be quite difficult and challenging. Pneumonia, of course, as I said, is another very important and common cause. Malnutrition, nutritional issues are very, very key, because malnutrition plays a role when it comes to health in every ramification, because a child who is malnourished doesn't even have the immune capacity to actually fight off these organisms and these germs that are causing this water poo-poo and this pneumonia. Then malaria is still a problem. We thought that malaria is something that we would have dealt with by now. We've been rolling out malaria since the first thing I heard. We're rolling back malaria.
Roll back malaria.
The first words I heard when I came out of the womb was roll back malaria. Until today, I'm almost 52, and we're still rolling back malaria. But you see, these things are all connected. They're all interconnected in the sense that parents can do much more. I mean, sometimes to prevent a condition, sometimes you don't need so much money. And besides, prevention is actually even cheaper. Apart from better, it's actually cheaper than curing a disease when it comes. What am I saying? I'm saying that to prevent neonatal mortality, try and go to the hospital, proper hospital for antenatal care. Till today, I'm still seeing so many people, not to cast any aspersions on the Alago, but I'm still seeing so many people giving birth at home, and not necessarily and going to give birth as the traditional birth attendants and not being referred on time. So the parents feel that they are skilled, but they are not being referred on time, so that by the time they get to us, they are quite ill. They are not present. The parents are not coming to hospital early enough when it comes to illnesses in children. They will first of all self-medicate on antibiotics that are not the right antibiotics. They will give the dose that is not the right dose. They will not even giving a dose 8 hourly, they will give it 12 hourly or even maybe once a day. And by the time they come to us, the situation has become critical. And so presenting early or going to the hospital early and on time is very critical in making sure that a child survives. We can go on and on with this, but let me just leave it at that, that please, early presentation is very important when it comes to preventing death of children.
Yeah, thank you so much. Because what you said, like 25% of all the under 5 deaths actually occurs in the newborn period. That is the first 1 month of life. So you can imagine that. And in fact, like some of those statistics will call that 75% of those ones as well will occur in the first week of life. And 75% of those ones will occur on the very first day of life of that child. So newborn period is a very, very critical period. And of course, you've mentioned all those things. Now, what strikes me in when you mention the things that are killing our children, you mentioned pneumonia, you mentioned diarrhea, you mentioned malnutrition, malaria, and obviously infections and all that stuff. But the issue is now all those things you've mentioned, which of them is an incurable disease? Which of them is something that we don't know how to treat? Which of them is something that we don't know how to cure? Uche, so why should our children be dying from? I know Ayo has mentioned a little bit about why, of course, but I want you to expatiate on it. So why should our children be dying from these things that we know we can treat, we can cure? Malaria, pneumonia, diarrhea, what other things are there? So why should our children be dying from them?
So sadly, every single thing he has mentioned can be cured.
Exactly.
And every single thing he has mentioned can be prevented.
Exactly.
So again, the question why? So let me ask mothers, why? Why?
So please answer the question.
Why?
Why? And you know what? I'm on Facebook. I mean, my husband is complaining I'm always on Facebook, and like every time I cry with parents on Facebook because parents come to my inbox and tell me they lost their child from things like diarrhea, things like that, and it pains my heart because I felt, why should this child die from malaria? Why should this child die from diarrhea and all that? And of course, at that time, that's not the time to go into why or what could have done. You are just trying to comfort the parents. But then, I mean, that should not have happened. In other countries, if a child die in a death that is not expected, so a child can have cancer. Even in US, cancer is still a killer. If not, Steve Jobs will be with us today. All right. So, I mean, there are some conditions that we know as pediatricians, as doctors, we are not gods. We are not going to be able to solve it. We don't have the cure for most cancer. We can treat some of them, but we know. So, but then when children die from things that we don't expect, like malaria, like diarrhea, like it's going to be investigated. They're going to do what we call child death reviews. We're going to why should this child die? But these are everyday occurrence in Nigeria. Children are dying. You see, every 15 seconds for whatever, for pneumonia. I can't remember the figures again. We always repeat it every November. Maybe not like every minute, somebody maybe die from malaria, or 30 seconds. I can't even remember. These are things, like Uche was saying, are things that are preventable, that are treatable. So why should our children be dying from them? We need to get to the answer of that. And that is not at the level of the government. That is not at the level of international policies and health inequalities. I know in the by the time you analyze it further, of course, it will come to that. But then, what can we do at the level of the parents? What can we do to prevent these deaths? So, I have a few questions down, but I think I want Uche, you can address that. Then we'll go back to the questions I have.
So information is power. And I think the first thing is to get informed. And
Which is what
information is
we're doing today.
everywhere. But you also need to sift the information you get, because there is as there is the good information, there is the deceptive and the bad information. So ATP is a very good platform to get every information required for the survival of your child and for the well-being of your child. Having said that, it starts with you, the parent, the mother. It starts with you planning your pregnancy. It starts with you deciding that you want to have a child and deciding that you want to have a healthy and a well child. So because what it means is that you take care of yourself before you get pregnant. You take care of yourself during pregnancy. You take care of yourself, of your baby during pregnancy. You take care of yourself and your baby at delivery and after delivery. And it's an ongoing thing at every point in time, taking care of both yourself and your baby. Because if something happens to you, invariably something happens to your baby. If you're dead today or you become sick, there may be nobody to take care of your baby. And so that cycle starts again with your baby. So you obtain the information and then you start from making the right decisions to take care of yourself and to take care of your baby. Deciding when to get pregnant. I know we're not obstetricians, but family planning is very important to us, because family planning, child spacing, it has a major impact on the well-being of a child. So when we've moved to pregnancy and delivery, where did you get antenatal care? Did you get antenatal care in the right place? Or did you just go to your neighbor to poke you in and out and decide that the baby has come? Dr. Renner had talked about lack of oxygen during delivery or before delivery. These are the things that have far-reaching effects on the child, even to a later age. For just 1 hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes of lack of oxygen, of poor management during delivery, and this child can become a vegetable for you for the rest of your life. So where do you get your antenatal care? Where do you take your delivery? So see how far we have come so far, just to talk about the well-being of a child, of a 5-year-old child, of a 10-year-old child. The decisions you take to get pregnant, to carry the baby to term, and the delivery impacts on this child. Then this child is born. What do you do? Nutrition. What do you do? Do you start giving the child abo at birth? Pour water, for those of you that give it for jaundice, those things are wrong practices. So you need to adhere to the right practices. Breastfeeding. WHO talks about exclusive breastfeeding. ATP preaches it even in their sleep. ATP preaches it every time. Exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life and continued breastfeeding up to 2 years and beyond. We preach it. What does breastfeeding do for you? One, is nutrition for your baby, and it is good nutrition. You don't have to warm the milk. You don't want to boil it. You don't have to store it. Everything has been made natural for you. It reduces the incidence of diarrhea. It reduces even pneumonia in the child. It transmits protective antibodies from the mother to the child. So protects the child from even other diseases that you cannot even imagine. It creates bonding between the mother and the child. So a happy mother, which then translates to a happy child. Because when you bond with your child, there are hormones that are released. You have this satisfaction with, bonding with your child. So it makes you happy, and it also means a happy child. And so you're breastfeeding. So then you can then save money. That first 6 months that you would have been buying milk. Remember, if you are feeding a child infant formula, for you to feed the child properly, you need to use one tin every 2 to 3 days. And you decide that you want to do one tin for 2 weeks, you're starving your child. And the process, the evil starts at that time. So you have a child that is malnourished, a child that is prone to diseases, sicknesses. So in trying to save money for milk, you have incurred more money for healthcare services. So appropriate nutrition. Then we talk about immunization, which starts at birth. So before you leave the hospital after delivery of your child, you should have the first doses of your immunization for your child. So immunizations against will prevent certain diseases. And should the diseases occur, it will make it milder. It will make the presentation milder. So it saves you cost, it saves you anxiety, it improves your quality of life, the quality of your life of your child, of yourself, of your family, and of the children around. Because one protected child somewhat protects other children. Because if you don't have children transmitting or even adults transmitting infection, then the infection will not be there. And immunization will do this for you. And so you move on from feeding to immunization. And then by the time you get to 6 months, we're talking about complementary feeds. How do you prepare it? Talk about hand hygiene, hand washing. How do you cook your food? Do you cook with stove inside the house and pollute the air? Do you put your children at risk? What is your housing like? What are your practices like? What are your sewage disposal practices like? These are things that we can do for ourselves. Like Dr. Boyede said, we don't need the government to help you to clean your house. You don't need the government to help you to breastfeed your child. You don't need the government. And government has even made a lot of the immunizations free. You don't need the government to then take you to the immunization center to get the immunization that you require. You don't need the government to teach you to wash your hands. And we can go on and on and on and very details, all these details that parents can do, the things that parents can do to help to prevent these things. I've gone as far as 6 months, and I'll leave it there. Maybe Dr. Renner will continue, but there are many more things.
Yes, thank you.
Talk about.
Thank you, Uche. I think you've really done, you've answered the question of what we call child survival strategies. And I love your approach because you started from before you even have a baby and you started with planning pregnancy. I think in Nigeria, pregnancy just fall on women. they don't plan. And the people don't realize how important it is to plan pregnancy. I love the fact that, so what Dr. Uche has told us, I will summarize this. She has told us what we call a child survival strategy. So she started with family planning and she went on to talk about the neonatal, maternal, child, newborn, neonatal care, which Dr. Renner also talk about delivering the right places and all that. Then she went on to talk about breastfeeding. Then she went to talk about immunization. She went to talk about nutrition, in the wider nutrition. Then talk about hygiene, talk about hand washing and all that. I don't know whether there are other ones she left out, Dr. Renner, that you want to complete. So I think she has mentioned about 5 or so.
Exactly. So the one that I'm very passionate about is actually female child education. It's actually one of the child survival strategies. So, so female child education, it's very important because somehow people say, why a female child? Why shouldn't a male child be educated? Because somehow people just in our environment just feel like it's not really necessary for the female child to be educated. I mean, that ideology is changing, but still, in a lot of places, all over all over Nigeria, and they might not be here on ATP, but still, you might know some of these people. You might know that it's practiced in your community, in your locality, in your village, where priority is not placed on educating female children. And it's very important because if a woman who gets at least secondary school education, the most important factor for survival, in a child is if the mother has at least a secondary education. Because by that way, she's able to take informed decisions about her own health and the health of her children to make sure that they do better. So female education is very important. Now, this nutrition supplementation, they call it food supplementation. That's another one of the child survival strategies. Now, I know the question that is full in my own DM is, which multivitamin can I give to my baby? And I tell them, no, see, once you are feeding your children a good balanced diet, then multivitamins are not absolutely necessary. But because we know that the presence of certain types of nutritional deficiencies is present, then we always say if you must buy things like salt, look for salt that is iodized, because iodine is very important in mental and brain development. If you must get sugar, look for sugar that is vitamin A. Fortunately, the government has actually mandated that sugar is actually supplemented with vitamin A or fortified with vitamin A, so that your children have good eyesight. There is a situation in which every 6 months, from the age of every 6 months from the age of 6 months, so 6 months, 1 year, 1 year, 6 months, You're supposed to receive vitamin A at the health center where you go for immunization. So that actually prevents, blindness, or prevents, visual problems. It prevents, it also helps to boost the immune system in such children. So food supplementation is another very important aspect of the child survival strategies. Then, of course, which has already mentioned health education, which is, really key and really important. So these are the ones that I can remember at this point in time. But what I would say is that the child survival strategies really are ways in which preventable deaths can be avoided in children. There are some reasons why children might die that are not preventable. Some genetic conditions, some heart conditions, that are very critical, such that they are so severe that the child might not even have time to survive more than a few days before they die. These are not the ones that we're talking about with child survival strategies. But with child survival strategies, we're talking about ways in which unnecessary death, death that has nothing to do with things that you cannot control, can be prevented. Let me just chip it in here that we have too many myths. Maybe we will still, address it. We have too many myths, too many things that, where did this come from? How is it that this normal hole on the front of the head is causing problems for people's grandmothers, and the grandmothers will not just leave that hole on the head alone. If you see the mixtures that they mix to cover this hole on the head in the name of all sorts of things, or car, if breeze touches it, the baby will be sick forever and ever. I mean, I'm like, So we do need to address a lot of these myths and let people know that our cultures are rich and our cultures have great ideas about a number of things, but sometimes our cultures also get it wrong when it comes to childcare. And to admit that is something that I think we all need to be discussing with ourselves, to admit that our cultures can get it wrong when it comes to taking care of children sometimes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Renner. And I think one thing I want to just kind of summarize what so far is the fact that what the killers of our children, those preventable deaths of children we're talking about, they are due to things that we can treat, that we can prevent. That is number one. So when you're talking about these horrible statistics that we have in Nigeria, that we're now the number one when it comes to the highest under 5 mortality rate, they are actually not from those rare stuff, that heart condition or cancers or stuff. They are real malaria, like everyday thing that we all deal with every day. I know that is number one. Then number two, the solutions are also actually in our hands. So everything that my distinguished speakers have mentioned today, starting from girl education, starting from family planning, starting from breastfeeding, immunization, they are all in our hands as parents. And most of those things cost little to nothing. You will notice that the only one thing that will cost us something is maybe when the children are actually sick and we have to now take them to the hospital. But breastfeeding is free. Immunization is free. At least majority of the vaccines are still free. And trust me, if you take those free ones, you are mostly covered. Okay. And education, of course, it should be free, but at least, and education is not only learning maths and English, just all this kind of information we are sharing together with us today. Health education, which is you are getting for free on ATP. I assure you of that one. So all these things are things that we have in our hands. So we know what's causing the deaths. We also know what the solutions are. So of course there are some that we may not have of course maybe about 25% of them we may not know the solution, they may not be straightforward, easy, but majority of these deaths are preventable and they are we can actually achieve that. But the main challenge again is that, like we said, ignorance, information. People don't even know, or people are given the wrong information. Like Dr. Uche said, that wrong information is also a major issue. So which is what we are actually trying to correct by having this conversation, by asking you to ask the pediatrician, because sometimes people, argue a lot back and forth, and people argue with pediatricians as well. And of course, I'm not saying pediatricians know it all. And people will come on ATP, you are trying to answer a question, and somebody else is quickly jumping in and telling them, like yesterday, I was just trying to answer a question. Somebody that will go to Elewe or more, go to the Alagba, like on ATP care. The person, But I think parents need to understand that when we make these recommendations, we are not trying to make your life harder. And some people think, oh, pediatricians say breastfeeding. I'm not going to listen to them. I'm going to do my own thing. You may think that you are trying to save one thing, but like Dr. Uche said, you're actually incurring more issues down the line. But sometimes parents don't see it at the beginning. So I hope having my guests on the show and talking about these things is helping us. I think we should take a few questions from the parents, so it won't be like it's only the pediatricians shows. Okay, I will take the first question is from Chidima. And Chidima is asking, is it right to breastfeed a 6-month baby at night? And at what age do we stop night feeding for children? Okay, I think I will let Uche take that. So it's one of the child support strategies. So breastfeeding we are very big on it. And come August, first week of August is breastfeeding week. You will hear enough from us breastfeeding. But let's just take this one now. Uche, do you want to tell us the answer to that?
Yeah, so breastfeeding, like I had earlier alluded, is exclusive to 6 months and continued up to 2 years and beyond. And breastfeeding should be on demand. So if your baby demands breast milk in the night, it should be breastfed. However, I do understand the peculiarities of families and certain dynamics. Mom needs to go to work and so on. And we permit things like express breast milk. So if you want to express the breast milk and get daddy to feed in the night so that you have some rest, that's absolutely beautiful.
Yes,
That's
so
fine.
that is, yeah, here, listen. All right, thank you. So Chidima continue to breastfeed. Okay, Ryan is asking a question. I think we've kind of answered your question because your question is so broad. So what can we do as parents to prevent these deaths? And I think that is what exactly Dr. Renner and Uche has already done, talking about those child survival strategies, starting from health education, family planning, breastfeeding, immunization, nutrition, and all the food supplementation and everything else that they've mentioned. So I think they've kind of answered your question. But if you still have anything more specific, feel free to repost that. Okay, you are asking now, how do we prevent pneumonia? Okay, pneumonia is one of, I think Dr. Renner says the number one killer. So Dr. Renner, how do we prevent pneumonia? How do we treat pneumonia?
Pneumonia, very, very important topic. Pneumonia is also preventable. One of the ways in which you can prevent pneumonia, actually, again, breastfeeding. So children who are exclusively breastfed are actually less prone to developing infections like pneumonia, otitis media, diarrhea. So breastfeeding is very important, and it actually protects them up until they are even 5 years of age. So breastfeeding is very important. Also, immunization. Immunization is very important in preventing pneumonia because there is a particular organism that we call Haemophilus influenzae, and it was demonstrated very clearly in the US that when immunization against Haemophilus influenzae was introduced into the immunization program, it turns out that the frequency of pneumonia actually reduced significantly. And the same time can be said if we actually you take our immunizations properly for our children, because the pentavalent vaccine actually contains a vaccine that prevents disease from Haemophilus influenzae. And this Haemophilus influenzae is very notorious not only in pneumonia but also in meningitis, and so it's very important. Then also there's a vaccination, we call it the pneumococcal vaccine, which has now been introduced into the National Program of Immunization. It's PCV for short. And so that PCV, they take it at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 14 weeks. And it actually also prevents pneumonia from a very common organism that causes pneumonia, Streptococcus pneumoniae, all this big grammar. There's SHA1 germ that causes pneumonia, against which there's a vaccination that we can give. And people don't know it, but measles actually also causes a very violent and bad pneumonia. And so by the time you get a vaccination against measles, then you're also preventing pneumonia as a result of measles. Now, does this mean that, so there's also some factors that maybe you might not have direct control over, but we hope you can control. So overcrowding, a house that has cross ventilation, and by cross ventilation, we mean that the house should have 2 windows opposite each other through which air can move from one end of the room to the other end of the room. But you see, a lot of us, unfortunately, in the economic situation, which is what we'll probably talk about later, are living in face me, I slap you, such that as soon as you open the door to your house, you are opening the door into somebody else's house before you are able to go out, barely any ventilation anywhere. And so everyone is coughing there in the same house. And so when one person coughs, it spreads around. Another way in which you can prevent pneumonia is hygiene. Teach children and adults should actually practice good cough etiquette. Coronavirus taught us that when you want to cough, you should not cough into your hand and into your face. You should cough into the fold of your elbow. Even though a lot of us actually, as a matter of fact, we have not forgotten this. Right now, we're coughing anyhow, spitting anywhere, because Corona seems to have gone. But please, always cough into your elbow, and then hand washing, because the same way in which we talk about, even though pneumonia is actually mostly airborne, some viruses that can cause pneumonia can still get into our systems through our hands that we use to rub our eye. The same way in which they always told you with coronavirus, don't rub your eyes, don't touch your face, don't rub your nose, because the virus gets into our systems through our eyes. If you rub your eye and the virus just attaches into that mucous membrane on your eyes, it gets into your system. And so same thing with other kinds of pneumonia. So good nutrition. Nutrition has a way of boosting the immune system. Fruits and vegetables, healthy carbohydrates, good amount of protein. Make sure that the children have a great immune system to prevent pneumonia. So these are the ways in which pneumonia can be prevented. And they are relatively easy ways, right?
Yeah, thank you. And it is not by not lying on the cold floor or it is not by not lying on the mats or something like that. Like that is the mother's cause of pneumonia. It is not that. So please take note of all those information. I will take a few questions from Instagram. We have a lot of happy anniversary from Instagram people. Okay, so Adupe Baby said, thank you, doctor, and our amiable guest doctors. My question is, what is the reason for an infant of 9 weeks to sneeze 5 times a day from birth, but no running nose, but at times makes noisy sound, I guess. So, Uche, do you want to go on that? So, a 9 weeks old baby just sneezing 5 times a day, every day since birth, but no running nose, nothing else. What do you think? That's the question mom is asking.
Okay,
Uche, do you
so
want to?
sometimes these things, sneezing could be the body's. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah, go on.
Can you hear me? Oh yeah. So sometimes
Yes,
sneezing is the body's way of trying to expel irritants and things that are within the system. So a 9 month, you said 9 month old that sneezes
9 weeks.
five times. 9 months or 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
9 weeks that sneezes.
Weeks.
Okay, that sneezes 5 times. Well, unfortunately, it's possible that that person has some allergy in the environment that irritates the system and is causing that sneezing. And it's unfortunate it's quite early because you don't get those things happening that early. And I'm wondering whether this child was exclusively breastfed, because that's one of the benefits of breastfeeding. Those allergies, so stimulating and sensitizing the body to allergens and all that. But that being said, is to identify what is in the environment that could be causing this child to sneeze. It may be something in the environment. Have you used some strong perfumes on the child's clothing? Have you used some strong soaps, some camphor, some other irritants? Are there dust lying around on the beddings, in the rug? Do you have fumes coming from your kitchen into the room or into the sitting room? So these are things you need to identify. So reassess your housing, reassess the things you use in caring for the child, and identify what it could be. It's something in your house, something around the baby that is causing the baby to sneeze. Again, that said, if your child is beginning to sneeze at this time, then you need to look out for more reactions and allergies, because it means that this child is prone to having very little things irritating the airway. So this is a child you want to keep an eye on, and probably go and visit a pediatrician so that you can plan your management, plan to identify the triggers and remove them early enough, and maybe start early treatment so that you don't have issues with asthma later in life.
Thank you, Uche. I always want to ask the mothers, because in my experience with Nigerian moms, that eucalyptus oil that you people always add to the oil, it is not in the constitution that you must always add it. And I found that is actually the reason why most babies sneeze, because mothers, I don't know who develop that maternity list, and they always make sure that eucalyptus oil is always there. And most mothers always just add it to their baby oil, and then they always put it on the scalp like every. And then coupled with the Oka phenomenon, believe that place must never be dry. They must always be putting the oil. Sometimes that is it. So I always ask the mom, do you have eucalyptus oil in your baby's oil? So let's start from there before you start going to all those other extra things, because that could be what Dr. Uche was saying, that maybe there's something the baby is being exposed to, and it's actually made people to sneeze a lot, and people think it's good, but so if you are worried the baby is sneezing a lot, maybe you should just get rid of that first. Then if that's not the issue, then look for other culprits. But that's, in my own experience, is number one culprit, because most Nigerian mothers, they like eucalyptus oil. It's silver bed. It's always in their bag every second. All right. So
Dr. Renner, is that eucalyptus oil on your head? Or is it the grandma's?
Don't start, Dr. Renner. He was going to do his sketch for them now. Okay, I think Ugo is just making a comment that poverty is part of the culprit, and I agree with her that we're talking about causes of death of our children. Obviously, poverty it is, because we notice that more children in the rural, poor environment tend to die compared to children in the urban area. And what Dr. Renner said, we've actually found that mothers whose when you are educated as a mother, your children are likely going to survive compared to mothers who are not educated. These are research, these are evidence. So the fact that you are here alone, your child have a higher rate of survival, because I believe that for you to be on smartphone, on internet, listening to us, you have some level of education. So that's good. So another person is asking what causes cleft lip and club feet. Okay, should we take that? Okay, Dr. Renner, do you want to take that in what causes lip and club feet?
Yes, very, very quickly.
Same baby. If it's the same baby, okay, how worry. Okay.
Oh, okay. Very, very quickly. Unfortunately, nobody knows actually what causes either of these conditions, either club foot or cleft lip. Nobody is sure. But we do know that in some situations, especially with cleft lip, they are in association with certain other conditions like heart conditions and certain types of syndromes that unfortunately cannot be managed by just one person. They have to be managed by a bunch of specialists. Some people have proposed that, okay, there are some genetic basis to some of these children that have cleft lip and club foot, because if one sibling has club foot, or if a parent had club foot, there's a likelihood that the child might also have club foot. They've seen some genetic predisposition to some of these children developing things like cleft lip and club foot. But to say this is the exact cause, unfortunately, no one knows. It is when the child comes to us that we now begin to have to start managing, but no one knows the cause of either of these conditions.
Okay, so you can take the child to the hospital and see our colleagues. About cleft lip can be repaired for free by Smile Train. So if that one is not a problem, we have an NGO that does it for free. If your child has cleft lip, they can, and they are available in the teaching hospitals. They're also available in some private hospitals. If you ask us later, I can always give you link to where you can get that repair for free. But the other part, you definitely need to see a doctor who will do everything together, and I mean, who will coordinate seeing all the other professionals, like the orthopedic for the club foot and the what's it called, to make sure there are no other other problems, like Dr. Renner said. Okay, somebody is saying carelessness and assumptions. Okay, these are contributions to why I think that was in response to when Dr. Uche, you were asking the mothers why. So they are telling you it's poverty, they are telling you it's carelessness and assumptions. So, and I think they are all correct. So Adupa Baby is asking another question, is like, why can't they administer immunization for malaria to infants? Who is next? Okay, Uche, you're next. So why can't they give malaria vaccine to our children in Nigeria? Because we already said malaria is one of the causes of deaths of our children. So why are we not having malaria vaccine?
Well, so research is still ongoing on malaria vaccines, and I think I'm aware that some have been approved at the moment.
Yeah.
So these things transcend down. Remember, we had mentioned earlier that children are the most vulnerable group, and they are as vulnerable as they reduce in age. So the younger, the more vulnerable. So you don't necessarily want to jump on an infant for a research purpose. You must
Mm.
first try it out in bigger children and then step it down all the way until you can safely administer it in children. So it's a process. I believe with the advent of the malaria vaccine now, with time, it will get to the infants, and that will solve the problem. But vaccines are largely, they are a lot of funding is required to develop a vaccine, and that is where the government and profit organizations and non-profit organizations come in, and we have to work at their pace. We have to work at their pace to get the vaccines done. It's not something that we sit in the comfort of our tiny consulting rooms and use Dr. Renner's wand to prepare. In addition, if it was that easy, we would be doing. Tells Dr. Renner he would do it for the grandmas. He loves them so much, but it's not that easy. So we have to work at the pace of these agencies that deal with this thing, and we just have to be patient with them until it gets to the point where we can administer it to the infants.
Yeah. So malaria vaccine is coming. It's almost here. It's already been trialed in some countries, and I think sometimes we don't always jump for everything. Sometimes some things may look like it's going to work, but it may not work, and then they may bury it there, so it may not come to you. But we think it's possible it's going to come soon. But the question I want to quickly put in there is like the question the government and all the other the people that are into vaccine production and transport all over the places are even the ones that we have given you for free. How many are we taking? It will amaze you to know that our immunization rate is still so low. Do you know there are many mothers who have not taken immunization? I don't know the figures of the DPT. I mean, it's now Penta 3 coverage. So we do what we call coverage. We look at how many children we should have taken vaccine have actually taken them. And the answer is it is not 100%. In fact, I think the best states in Nigeria at one point in time when I looked was Kwara, and it was 80 or something percent at that time. So a lot of parents are forgetting to go for vaccination. So if you are not even taking the Penta, the ones that are available, the measles, the yellow fever, how do we now know you will take the malaria? So we need to make sure that we convince people that we actually need the vaccine by taking the one that is already available. I know most of you do take your vaccines, but there are a lot of mothers who don't remember, who forget. So let's remember that immunization is one of the child survival strategies. We must take vaccines for our children. I think it is against the Child Rights Act not to give your children immunization. You can be taken to court, but I guess nobody is looking for those kind of to implement it. So, but let's just remember that. All right, we still have a lot of questions on Instagram. Instagram people. Okay, let me just take the first question. Means 6 say happy anniversary ATP. I would like to know what cream I can use for a rash on the cheek of a 7-week-old. So I'll just quickly answer that to say we need to see a rash before we can tell you what's the cream to use. So because this program, you won't be able to send us a picture. Why not send us later? You are telling us you've used pseudo cream, you've used powder. I would say stop using anything and see either you post it on our Facebook group with a picture, or you see any of our colleagues outside in the hospital. I think that's a better option. All right, Shirley is saying 9-month-old baby, 2.2 kilos. She's not taking cereals, but she wants to eat what I'm eating. Okay, I think I'll let Dr. Renner answer that. So this is a 9-month-old baby who's already weighing 12 kilos and does not want to take cereal. And Shirley is worried that but the baby wants to eat what the mom is eating. So
9 kg and 12 kilograms.
Yes, 9 months, weighing 12 kilos.
That's a big baby.
Big baby.
That's a big baby. Now, maybe I should just use this my magic wand and make the baby start to take regular food. So here's what it is. I'm not going to make any comment on the appropriateness of the 12 kg for the 9-month-old, because a lot of factors come into play when it comes to how heavy a baby is, genetics, and I also need to take into context how tall or how long the child is, And if the child has always been big right from birth, size of the parents, so there's so many things to unpack there. So let me just face the issue of baby, refusing cereals and wanting to eat only what you are eating. That's very common. Children don't do what you say. Children do what they see you do. And so when you are eating, they show interest in wanting to eat along with you. And the problem I have with her wanting to eat your food alone is that your food does not contain the nutritional density, that is required to actually help the child to grow adequately at that point in time. Because here's what it is: the stomach of babies is actually a little bit smaller than yours. So while you might be able to actually take that food to your field and it will give you sustenance, because you're not growing again. The only direction in which you can grow is sideways. You cannot grow up again. But this child still has a lot of nutritional requirements that if you were to give the child the 4 morsels of amala or the 4 morsels of or her soup with pounded yam that the child can take, the child really will not get the adequate nutrition from that food that is required. So what you can do is that if the child is showing interest in your food, yes, by all means, please give her every now and again, but don't make them the full meals. You still need, if the child is rejecting cereal, please don't stop at trying to give cereal. Think outside of the box. I don't want us to get into this box where cereal is the only thing we can possibly give. Think about mashed potatoes. Think about, even boiling red meat, till it's very soft, and then mixing it into the mashed potato or, mashed sweet or Irish potato. Add a little bit of avocado oil, a little bit of, clarified butter. Think outside the box in introducing food to babies, because it's clear that your baby seems to be more interested in the flavors and the textures of adult-like food. So when she now sees you coming with that poto that you have mixed in the name of cereal, they'll be like, no, I'm not really interested in this. Give me something that has flavor, something that has taste. And I'm sure you can have access to a bunch of nutritional support even here on Ask the Paediatricians. And so just consult them and get an idea of what you can be giving instead of cereal alone. At 9 months, really, the baby really should still be also taking breast milk, but and so you really should also still be breastfeeding despite despite the fact that you are giving semi-solids. And I hope you still are, even if you are not, it really is still part of their diet to still be taking breast milk at this point in time. So please think outside the box and don't be discouraged, because I find that parents try to introduce one food, and then if the child rejects it 2 times, they become discouraged and then they try to stop. It is a known fact that you will try to introduce a food to a child sometimes up to 8 times before they finally accept that food. So don't stop at introducing the food twice or thrice and give up and say that doesn't like it. No, be persistent. Try and introduce it up to 8 times before. Sometimes the child will need up to 8 exposures to the food before they finally accept it.
Thank you, Dr. Renner. She mentioned that the child is also taking egg yolk, yogurt, beef, chicken. So this child is taking quite a lot of varieties. So I think the mom is the one putting herself in the cereal box. As long as your child is getting the, I'm sure we've had a lot of nutritional videos. So we don't want to get into that today, because that would be another 1 hour. So let's just move on. So you can always go to our group and look at those videos on complementary feeding for more information. Yeah, okay. So Adupe baby has responded to what I said about eucalyptus oil. Yeah, she's using eucalyptus oil on him. I'm almost always 90% certain when a Nigerian mother say her newborn baby is
Dr. Renner needs to give you your wand. You need to take the wand away from him. You are the new diviner.
No. This one is from my experience with mothers, because I don't know who started that maternity list. But please, it is not in the constitution. It's almost like a constitution that eucalyptus oil must always be there. Even my mom, she always like, eucalyptus oil, you receive her bed, you buy it. I'm like, no. So I just read away, and they will even mix it with the baby oil. So it is always constantly being exposed. And the way it works is that it makes you sneeze a lot. So just go and trash the eucalyptus oil, and your baby sneezing. That's the end of the story. All right. Demi D is saying, at what age should a baby stop sucking in the midnight? Okay, I think Uche has answered that question. So let's not go. You said breastfeed on demand, and your baby wants it in the night, give it. There's no limits. I know mothers want to sleep all night. That is where the question is coming from. But you don't really need to breastfeed them in the night if they are eating, if they are sucking during the day. But if the baby wakes up and wants to suck, it is okay. So no problem with that. But I know you all want to sleep overnight. You don't want to breastfeed, but at least breastfeed during the day. All right. Somebody saying happy anniversary ATP. My baby of 1 year, 5 months had cough and catarrh 1 month ago. It's back now. It is dry cough, running nose. Okay, I'll pass that to Uche. So I guess she's asking what should she do. So 17-month-old baby had cough and catarrh a month ago, back again now. Is dry cough, running nose. I guess she's asking what she would do.
So just like we all know, I guess if I ask, does the baby attend creche? The answer is probably going to be yes.
Yeah, that's
And
another
when
one.
and when I say they're entitled to, I don't mean it in that regard, but children who are repeatedly exposed to each other, they share these viral
Yeah.
infections from time to time. They are kind givers. They are very magnanimous. They share their viruses with each other. And so you kind of, these children can have these things up to 6 to 12 times in 1 year, right? So that's probably what I think the problem is. So again, like Dr. Renner had said before, cross ventilation, proper ventilation in their creches. These are ways to reduce these things. Proper hand hygiene amongst their staff. So these are things that mothers can then help preach in the schools where their children attend. So this thing. So, and if the child doesn't have to go to creche, if there will be someone to take care of the child at home, I understand the peculiarities of the 21st century woman who has to work.
Yeah.
Yes. But if there are opportunities for the child not to go to creche, child doesn't have to go to creche, then keep the child at home and nurse at home properly.
Okay, so you can let Dr. Uche know whether your baby is going to crash. So we know whether that's another one we got right. Okay. The other question is from Jixi Queen. Jixi Queen. Sorry if I didn't pronounce it well. Say good evening. Thank you for always teaching us rightly. Baby of 1 year, 7 months have only 5 teeth, and she's worried because children of the other age have more than that. Then secondly, when she has catarrh, she hardly eats. What can I do to help out? Okay, so let's start with the teeth. She's 17 months old. She has only 5.
17 months, only 5. Well, we always take all these things in context. If the child is otherwise healthy, growing well, no bony deformity, eating well, happy, playing, active, let him be using the 5 teeth to eat what he's eating. Let him be managing the 5 teeth like that. If you're particularly worried, so we don't worry too much about the number, you know. So yes, we really like you not to pay too much attention, not to be so worried about the number of teeth. As long as the child is growing well, is a happy, healthy, well child. But if you're particularly concerned, you can actually go and see a dentist, and then they'll be able to give you an idea of there's a chart that actually shows you how many teeth the child should have at a particular point in time. But the fact that the child doesn't have that number at that point in time doesn't necessarily mean that the child is abnormal. Some children might not behave the way other children behave. But those children who don't behave normally, sometimes we now say, okay, are there any other things that could suggest to us that this is a disease rather than just somebody who just decided not to behave like everybody else, okay? So, but generally, if your child is growing well and has no other issue, then please let him just use the 5 teeth to be managing anything that you give him. That's one. So about the catarrh, you see, the issue with catarrh and children not feeding is very common. And what a lot of mothers do is that the next thing, they have pounced on rub or mentholatum or baby mentholatum, and then they anoint the child from head to toe, in this very pungent emollient. So what I would say is that the most important thing to do is to rehydrate the child. Sometimes children might not actually eat very well when they have a cold, because if it's a viral infection, as with any other viral infections make people actually quite ill. And so the appetite can reduce and they might refuse to feed. And so in that situation, if the child the appetite has reduced to less than 50% of their usual intake in a child that is less than 1 year, you need to go to the hospital. If their food intake and liquid intake has reduced significantly to the extent that, over 3 hours they have not had a wet diaper, you need to take to the hospital. But sometimes the reason why they might not feel very well is because their nose has been blocked. And so deciding how you want to clear the nostril is very important, because a person who is not breathing very well won't be able to suck very well because they are unable to coordinate food in their mouth with breathing. I've talked about people sucking catarrh from babies' noses quite a lot on my page, you know, how they just put their mouth and just do like they are sucking Capri-Sun, you know. But I've told people that it might bring the catarrh out, but unfortunately, you might develop or catch the cold that the child has. The organisms that are in your mouth that might be harmless to you might be harmful to the baby, and you might give it to the baby and compound the problems. So what you need to do is that, you know, there are certain products like saline nasal drops, and there are certain devices that can actually use to hygienically extract the catarrh from the nose of the child. And a lot of mothers tell me that, that's how my mother did it. That's how our mothers did it. They were sucking catarrh from the nose. Well, your mothers also use grinding stones. So if you are interested in continuing to do what our mothers do, please just go and pick up your grinding stone and start to grind the pepper, because we need to progress. We need to move forward. But I need to sound a note of caution because a lot of mothers try to give things like Piriton and, you know, all these other cold and cough mixtures to children less than 2 years. Please don't go and buy over-the-counter medications like Piriton for your children who are less than 2 years, because they have some side effects that can actually be fatal. You know, because some reports have been made about, you know, children having died from using some of these medications. So please, if you must give your children any of these things, make sure that it's under the supervision of a physician, and that, you know, you have the full idea and full knowledge of, you know, what the likely side effects might be. But please don't go by yourself and buy any cold Piriton or cough mixture for any child less than 2 years, because they can have certain side effects that might be quite bad. But if all of this fails, please just go straight to the hospital, because water don't pass Gary.
Thank you, Dr. Renner. You actually brought some important points, which I think we actually should talk about before we could go on with some of the questions we still have. The fact that mothers always want to say, this is how we've always been doing it, and then, oh, should we just, this is how my mother, and that is always the defense a lot of mothers sometimes give, that's how my mother treated me, and I'm here now, I'm alive. And always, what people don't realize, like when we started this program, we started with the statistics. The number of people that were dying in their days were more than people that are dying now. So the fact that they did it for you and God had mercy on you and you survived, you should go and thank God, because they won't tell you how many children die. In those days, people have many children because they are not sure of how many of those children are going to survive. And most of the children were not surviving because of some of these things that we're talking about, that we say don't do it again. So please, let's stop even using that defense. The fact that your mother did it and nothing happened to you, it doesn't make it right. You survived maybe by God's mercy, but that doesn't mean you should keep on doing, because in your mother's days, a lot of children died and they didn't survive. Many of them will have 10 children, maybe only 5 will remain, only, you know, some of them. So we know there are a lot of factors. So, and of course, technology, information, education is always changing. So there are things we know now that we don't know then. So we should not keep on. In those days, they were killing twins, but none of us is killing twins anymore. So we know better. So let's not be saying because that is how they were doing it in those days, it does not make it better. That's not a very good defense. All right, let's go on. I think we just switch back to Facebook questions. People are just asking their own personal question now. So I think I will ask Uche again. You see all the breastfeeding question comes to you. Please, can you continue breastfeeding after 40 days? I'm not really sure where this question is coming from, but I don't know, 40 days of the baby's life or 40 days of what? Anyway, I'll leave Uche to sort it.
Please, it is fully paid for. Fully paid for. You need to continue. So we talk about exclusive breastfeeding. It's free, fully paid for. Just receive it and give it to the baby. So yeah, we've talked about exclusive breastfeeding up to 6 months and continued breastfeeding to 2 years and beyond. Yes, so any child who is less than, that's 1,000 days, should be breastfeeding. So yes, 40 is far from 1,000. So please fire on, fire on, fire on, fire on.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the 40 means. Annabelle, if you didn't get your 40, maybe you want to come and update that. Is it 40 days of life of the child or 40 days after an event? Because I'm not really sure why you settle down on 40. But anyway, she has already told you 2 years minimum. You can fire on. All right, young queen is saying my 10 months takes cereals to bed, but we wake up every 30 minutes after to breastfeed. Like the breast must be in her mouth while she sucks and sleeps. Should I continue to oblige her, or how do I go about it, please? So we leave that to Dr. Renner.
Wow. Well, this is a this is a very interesting one because I mean clearly the child is full. You know, if you're giving her cereal and then 30 minutes later she wakes up for the breast. So essentially, she just wants something to pacify her, as you've as rightly observed or deduced. And you can oblige her if you are still around in the house. And you know you are not going to work the following morning, or you know you are still on maternity leave, or you work from home, or you own your own business. Oblige her for as long as she wants to do it. But if you think that your social circumstance is such that you need to be up and doing the following morning, you need to go where you need to go, my dear, express that breast milk into a bottle. I know that it's not going to be the same thing, and some babies, they just don't want that bottle in their mouth. What they want is actually the nipple. Now, this topic actually centers around how you begin to discontinue or begin to stop breastfeeding. Even though WHO recommends that you should actually breastfeed until the child is 2 years, social circumstances does not make it possible for every mother to breastfeed until the child is 2 years. And so, if you decide that you want to start to begin to, you know, here, what I'm saying around this, your question is that, Doc, you'd be like, say, I want to stop all this bad habit. I want to stop all this breastfeeding that this child is doing. I am not somebody's pacifier. And I think that's what you're trying to do. What you need to do is that either you know, begin to refuse the feeding those feeds after the cereal gradually. So rather than doing it every night, you can now actually start to do it maybe 3 times a night for 2 weeks, and then reduce it to 2 times a night for, you know, another 3 weeks before you now gradually stop. So if you mean to stop it, unfortunately, there is really no other way you can go about it. You just have to be gradual. I've seen some mothers on my page that said that, Dr. Renner, I just yanked it from their mouth and then just told them to go and sleep in the room with their father so that they can fight themselves. In the morning, they would narrate to me how the experience was, and that was how they actually stopped. So please don't, if you think, if for some mothers, it actually is a great bonding experience where they can breastfeed and they don't mind it and they're happy to do it for as long as the child is willing to have it. But if you feel that you need to stop it for social reasons, for reasons because you need to stop it, you know, I mean, by all means, do so and try to do it gradually. And eventually the baby will get to the program. Everybody has to conform at one point.
All right, thank you. Our time is running. We still have just a few more questions and we'll take them. Jennifer is actually directing this question to Dr. Renner. She's talking about, you mentioned jaundice when you were talking about newborn deaths. What causes jaundice in newborn and how do we prevent it?
Wow, I wish this was directed to Uche. You know,
okay,
honestly,
if you don't want to take it, it's okay then.
Yes,
Uche
I
can
think.
take it.
I
That's
mean,
our
let me
field.
just pass the ball. Let me pass the ball so that Uche can score the goal.
I feel bullied right now.
Why? I thought you are the expert in jaundice and developing therapy lamps for us and all that.
Okay, so jaundice can come as a number of causes, right? But more commonly, most of the jaundice we see in the newborn are what we call physiologic jaundice. Even though we call it physiologic jaundice, you first have to exclude that other things are not the cause of it. And so more commonly in the newborn period, it's the fact that when the children are born, they are born with very high levels of blood, red cells, and that blood has a very short lifespan, and so they begin to break down quite rapidly. And their level of breakdown overwhelms their body's ability to excrete it. So it accumulates as bilirubin, and it appears at the skin and the eye as jaundice, as yellowness. So some of them will require therapy, some you just monitor them. Eventually the body sorts itself out. God has made the body in such a way that we're usually able to sort ourselves out. Just like when you have a wound, it heals, you know, and so on. So the body will usually sort itself out. But there are times that certain things, which are again can be prevented or treated can cause jaundice. One of them is inadequate feeding in the early days of your baby's life. So when a child is not properly breastfed, that can cause jaundice. So they get dehydrated and certain series of events occur and they can get jaundice. Some other times, quite not common but can occur, is there are times when certain factors in the breast milk can cause jaundice. And I'm saying this with caution so that mothers will not say, breast milk causes jaundice. No. But the truth is there are some factors in the breast that can cause jaundice temporarily for a child. And all you need to do is to cease breastfeeding for about 48 to 72 hours and then recommence. But usually this will be recommended by your pediatrician. So don't take that decision by yourself. When your baby has jaundice, the right thing is to take to the hospital because you don't know what the cause is. Jaundice in itself, if not properly managed, can cause irreversible brain damage to your baby, right? So we said that most of them are of no consequence, but you don't want to sit at home because you don't know whether that is it. Then we've said that some of them are from inadequate feeding in the first days of life. So again, so usually when you hear jaundice, you want to say breastfeed some more because again, including the therapies, it will cause some form of dehydration. So you want to get the child well hydrated, and we do that in these neonates by breastfeeding and breastfeeding and breastfeeding. And we've talked about the one that can be caused by very small population by the breast milk itself, but it's a very transient thing. Now there are then other major causes like infection. Yeah, so infection in the newborn period can cause jaundice, and those ones usually will want to attack the brain. Then there are some other genetic components, some other inborn errors, like born with some problems with the liver, or those kind of children will generally be sicker. They may have a certain facie, they may have a certain appearance, those clearly will need, higher level of medical attention. So these are the things that cause jaundice generally. So most of the jaundice are something that you need to monitor. Some of them just need to go under the phototherapy. So I'm sure some of you know about the light therapy, where they put them under the light and just for a few days while you monitor the level of the jaundice while mom continues to breastfeed, whether directly or as expressed breast milk. Some of them will be because you didn't even breastfeed well at all in the first place. Okay, so these are the causes of jaundice. And always, whenever you see a child that has jaundice, please take to the hospital. Please do not stay at home and give pawpaw water. Please do not give abo. Please do not mix any concussion and give the child. You could just be worsening it, especially when they begin to have some changes in their movements, in their attitude, in their cry, or they are beginning to sleep too much, or it's getting deeper and deeper. Anytime you see John D, don't even wait for the this, John like this. Please just take your child. It's better you get there, the test is run, and you are told, okay, this one, come in 2 days, let's check again. Let's be sure that the level is reducing. It's better that way than you delay. Dr. Renner said at the beginning that early presentation is key in the care of these children. So jaundice, please always present to hospital. The management is very simple for the very basic forms of jaundice and really doesn't affect much. So you don't want to also lose that thing. So just one tiny window like this and your baby will get brain damage.
All right.
I hope
Thank you
that
so
answers
much.
it.
Yes. I think you have done justice to that question. I'll just add, please, jaundice treatment is not ampiclox and it is not purple water. Like Dr. Uche has said, if baby has jaundice, until proven otherwise, it's an emergency. You got to go to the hospital. Somebody got to take blood, got to know the level of the jaundice, and before they will now say, okay, it is physiological jaundice, go home and breastfeed, or we are keeping your baby. Unfortunately, most mothers don't know the difference. The fact that your friend zone go away without any treatment does not mean that's going to happen to the other baby or even your first baby. So we always have to take each episode or each incident of a jaundice and every child separately. I'm a developmental pediatrician. I see a lot of children with cerebral palsy and it's because of jaundice. Uche has disappeared. I hope she comes back. Okay. I hope we didn't bully her out. You come back. I guess it's a network. All right. Kosi now, yes. Say, please, how can I stop my 2-year-old baby from night eating? 2-year-old night. So that Renner, you're the only one here. Okay, Uche is back.
Hi, Noye. I don't know why you would want to stop your 2-year-old from night eating. I know
think
that
she means maybe midnight. Maybe she means in the middle of the night, not
in
in
the middle of
like
the night.
dinner.
Well, unfortunately, even in the middle of the night, gone. If your 2-year-old wants to eat in the middle of the night, personally, I mean, I think you can oblige the child. If you know, I know that the problem is that it's actually disturbing your sleep. That's the real issue.
Yes.
Because a 2-year-old that decides that they want to eat at night, it depends. Maybe I don't know when during the night they want to eat, or maybe it's 3 a.m. that they want to eat. Then it means that maybe they are eating too early before they go to bed, and so their tummy is like completely empty by the time they are ready to go to bed. And I know that children require up to 8 to 10, like a 2-year-old, really 10 hours really of sleep in the night, meaning that if they go to bed by around 8, 6 hours is around 2 a.m. and then 4 hours is around 6 a.m. So if you were to give the last meal, so for instance, okay, let's say you give the last, I don't know when you give the last meal, but if you were to give the last meal, say around 8, then, and the stomach empties in 4 hours, then really by 2 a.m., your child will be up to eat. And there are some children that just have large appetites like that. So what you might want to do is that the quality of the evening meal should be something that is a little bit high in protein, because protein has a way of taking longer to digest, because carbohydrates, after a few hours, the thing has gone. So try and incorporate, a significant amount of protein in the night meal so that the meal lasts a little bit longer and the child is a bit fuller for longer. What you can do is that if they still have to wake up in the night to feed, then have a light snack, by the side. Alternatively, if you want to begin to stop it gradually, what you can do is that when they wake up to eat, don't offer them the food every night. You fight, but don't offer them the food every night. Just offer it to them maybe on alternate nights and then begin to reduce it. But I'm really not an advocate of making children hungry, even if it's in the middle of the night. Just do it. One day you'll just find out that they just stop disturbing you for food in the middle of the night. But try and incorporate more protein into the night food so that the meal lasts a little bit longer. I hope that helps. It's a very difficult question to answer.
I know. All right. Well, our time is running up, so we still have a lot of questions. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to take all of them, but if we will try as much as possible. So maybe I'll just tell my guests to just keep it to 1-2 line answers. Some of the questions are also like repetitive, so we may want to skip some of them if they are repetitive. But if you still have any questions after the program, please feel free to post on our Facebook group and we'll try and do justice to them. Okay, so the next question is by Jane. He said, can I increase the height of my baby? I mean, this is a 4-month-old in 2 weeks. It looks little for his age. Jane, do you want to increase the height or you want to increase the weight? Because I'm not so sure I get that. And you didn't even give us any objective figures to work with. You should have, maybe if you have told us the current weight and height, then my people will be able to know whether what you're even describing is even within normal before we start talking about whether we should increase or not. So if you are still listening to us, I think it would be better if you give us more objective information like the current weights and current height if you have it. And then we can answer. But I'm not sure we're worried about heights in a 4-month-old. Let me just be honest with that. I think we worry more about the weight. So just leave the baby alone, but tell us the weights and we'll tell you whether we are happy or not. So Chidima said, does jaundice in children has relationship with mommy, with the mom having malaria during pregnancy? So I'll just pass that to Uche quickly so that you started the jaundice, so you can just continue.
So if just before delivery, for example, there's malaria treatment or its treatment thereof that will cause some further breakdown of that certain drugs that can pass through the mother into the child that can cause breakdown of red cells. Like we said, it is the breakdown of the red cells that will cause the jaundice. So if there is a certain treatment of the malaria just peri-delivery that would have transferred into the child and cause, so use of drugs essentially that can cause jaundice, then that is it. Otherwise, the relationship with malaria, with mom having malaria during pregnancy, early pregnancy, and except you are talking about, poorly treated malaria or something, some other causes or some other diseases that the mother has, because we call everything malaria in Nigeria, though.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
there are other things that the mother has that may have
yes.
caused some problem in the child, so some malformation, some other problems in the child, then yes.
Okay, I think I get this question a lot because mothers always think malaria causes jaundice. Malaria does not cause jaundice in the newborn baby at all, so it's not one of the causes. I don't know why they ask that question is because they ask whether they can prevent jaundice in babies by treating malaria in the mother. It is not. So it's just, most of them are not asking about what you are talking about, Uche, about maybe close to delivery, pregnancy, drugs. No, they are talking about you having malaria, maybe even in the first trimester or second trimester, now causing jaundice in your baby. It does not. I'm sure that's what you do, but if not, you can always clarify. But I don't think so. All right. The next question, is there any challenges? Okay, Raymond said that comes when a baby takes only one breast and refuses the other. Okay, let's give that to Renner.
Well, no, I've actually addressed this on my page as well, because there's this babies that just want one particular breast and not the other. There's no long-term health implication or challenge for the baby or the mother. But the problem with not taking from one breast is that as long as the baby is sucking from one breast, the other breast is going to continue producing and can become engorged and quite painful, and that's quite uncomfortable for the mother. So what you can do is that you can express from the breast that the baby is refusing from. Then there are lots of reasons why a baby might not take one breast or prefer the other, but that's not your question. Your question is like, is there any health implication? And the simple answer is that no, there is no health implication. Just breastfeed from the breast that the child seems to prefer from, and then express from the other and give them through cup and spoon.
All right. Because of time, we just leave that one there. And Uche, somebody is asking, can a 6-year-old do surgery for adenoid? Is it advisable?
So yes, if the adenoid is impacting the child's health, his quality of life, his quality of sleep, his schooling, his feeding, and everything, then yes. And I want to believe you've been reviewed by an ENT surgeon and they have decided that this is worth taking out. We know that adenoids will resolve. The impact of adenoids on children will resolve with time. But if it continues to have a significant adverse impact on the child, then yes, please kindly take it out if you can.
Thank you. I know most mothers are worried about surgery. Every surgery is a big deal, but some of them are necessary. And the professionals who are going to do them, they are going to do all their best to make sure it's limited complications. So don't be scared. Just do it if your doctors have advised. Young is asking, is it right to forcefully brush my toddler's teeth? It won't let me brush the teeth, but seems to be okay with washing his tongue alone. Okay. Renner,
Well,
do you want to answer that?
wow. Well,
This is a consistency.
there's them, it's them, these people. Well, unfortunately, there's no other way sometimes. I've seen parents literally have to pin down their children to make them brush the teeth. I know you'd have tried all the methods of singing, dancing, cocoa melon. If all those ones have not worked, then please try to be firm, but please don't try to force anything into the baby's mouth, because you can actually fracture a tooth. Yes, you can fracture the tooth. So limit the force that you are using. But what you need to do is please be persistent. Make sure that you attempt to brush every morning and every night. At one point, your child will stop fighting with you because they know that it's part of the routine.
All right, thank you. Thank you for keeping it short and simple. Somebody is watching all the way from Kenya. Thank you. We love you. I think Nairobi, Kenya has the highest number of ATP members in any city outside of Nigeria. So I'm happy to have the Kenya people. I'm still learning how to greeting. Greeting guys in Kenya. Okay, Uche, you should know that now. You should tell me. So how do they greet in Kenya? Okay, where were you the other day? I've forgotten the name now.
Namibia.
Okay, Namibia is close. Okay, that's closer to South Africa.
Yes.
All right. So Queen is saying, is there any health damage? It's like Queen came for us today. Is there any health damage in taking cyproheptadine? Yeah, in children and babies. If yes, why is it sold OTC? Okay, who's next? Okay, Uche, you're next.
I'm not a pharmacologist. Anyway, so cyproheptadine is the 5-HT receptor agonist or antagonist, one of them. But I know it stimulates appetite. So we don't like appetite stimulants in children generally, and at least not in this form. There are other forms of multivitamins that could help to stimulate appetite, but not in this form. So, and this acts in the brain, and we don't want to use this in children. Why it is sold OTC, that is beyond our control, but that is. Yes, but what I agree is there are things that the pediatricians should advocate for. Certain the drugs that should be sold over the counter for the safety of children. So we wouldn't prescribe cyproheptadine for children generally. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ship in things like that because this is the same reason why mothers ask me when I tell them don't give teething mixture. Then why is it sold in the pharmacy? Why is it being sold? Why are they selling it? So let me tell you one thing. The Food and Drug Agency Corporation, their role is not to decide what is going to work. They are not after efficacy. They are not after, if you say this drug can cure all the 1001 diseases in the world, that is not the role of NAFDAC. No, the role of NAFDAC is this drug safe? In other words, is this drug something that if they put into human being, it's not going to kill that person immediately? In other words, is it safe? That is all they have to. So that is why all the other drugs have NAFDAC numbers, because it's not about whether they are going to. So if somebody said this is for teething and it's not the role of NAFDAC to say, oh, truly that drug is meant for teething and it will work for teething. That's not their role. Their role is safety. So, and if the company can demonstrate some minimum level of safety, NAFDAC is going to pass it. And obviously this drug is something that is used for other reasons. That's not the issue here. The issue is that should it be used in children for the purpose of appetite stimulation? The answer is no. What is in teething mixture is paracetamol, is chlorpheniramine, and all those things. Of course, paracetamol is a normal drug, it's safe. Chlorpheniramine is also a normal drug that we use for other reasons. But should we be giving it to children when they don't have fever, when they are not sick? Because we are treating them, we are giving them teething mixture. That is an answer which NAFDAC is not going to answer for you. Now, that is where the pediatrician is going to come in and say you don't use it, because every drug is a poison. Even your paracetamol is a poison. And I know some of you who give this teething mixture that contain paracetamol and all these drugs every day to children. You are damaging the liver. That is the truth, because if you take paracetamol in excess, it will cause liver failure. Even though it's paracetamol that you don't need a prescription and it is OTC, but there's a level of paracetamol you will take that you will end up needing liver transplants because the liver is going to pack up. So let's be mindful of that. So the fact that a drug is sold in a pharmacy and has a NAFDAC number on it does not mean it should be used, okay? And this particular cyproheptadine, because a lot of other hacks mean super appetite, it has all sorts of brand names, is not recommended. It has a lot of terrible side effects, and we don't want to use it for children. Okay, whether it's OTC or not, that's not my problem. But you should not. No pediatrician recommends it as appetite stimulant. There is no appetite stimulant medication ever in any formulary, in any drug formulary for children in US, in UK. Some of us have had opportunity to practice outside the country and in other parts of the world. There is none. So just take that from me. So anybody that sells you any drug as appetite stimulant is not from a pediatrician. It is not recommended by a pediatrician. If you use it, you are using it knowing that you are responsible for whatever comes out of it. That's all we are going to say. I really need to say that because some of our children end up dying because of us, because of what we do the wrong thing. You know, the teaching drugs led to a lot of children having renal failure during my Peking saga. You know, where children that shouldn't have had any problem with their kidneys end up needing dialysis just because people give a drug that is not necessary to have been given in the first instance. So please, let's take note of that. All right, our time is good. I don't want to. Somebody say, where can I get immunization for my baby? Immunization is in the health center now. Health center, please. There's health center in every 30 minutes. In every 30 minutes walk from you. Am I correct? I think that's what they told us. But at least in every local government, yes.
The question is when.
Oh, when? Oh, sorry. When can I get immunization? Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't read. I read it as where. Okay. When there's immunization schedule. Tell me why. So there's immunization schedule. If you go on our Facebook group, I'm sure there's. If you just we will have it somewhere there. Somebody can show it to you. If you have an immunization card, it's also in that card as well. I'm sure you will have a card. If you ever deliver your baby in an hospital, they should give you an immunization card. Whether it's private or government, you should have an immunization card. So all the dates are there so that we don't waste time on that one. That helps. I'm trying to be fast so that's our our time is almost up. Okay, Annabelle is the one that has question about 40 days long. Baby is 10 months old. Okay. So I get the question. Her mom has been away from her baby for 40 days and she's back now. So the question is, can she still recommence breastfeeding? Okay, I think we got the question now. Uche.
So you went away with our belonging and you have come back with our belonging. It still belongs to us. So yes.
Why did you go away for 40 days without our baby?
With our belonging.
She went for prayer and fasting.
No. A lot of mothers go through this anyway, like those who travel for education purpose or school and all that. Please go with the baby. Go with our baby. I employ a nanny and go with the baby if you can. But like you said, you can see this. If the breast is still flowing, you can still start. I hope it is still flowing. That would be the miracle question. If it has not dried up in the process. Okay, somebody is saying, can a breastfeeding mom treat malaria? Yes, if which drug is good for it. Which next? Okay, Dr. Renner.
Yes. Okay. So let me just state something before we answer this question. That's it. People always imagine that pediatricians, doctors, we always want to prescribe.
Don't disappear, Renner. Just come back. Okay, I hope Dr. Renner comes back. Am I the one frozen? Oh no, it's Renner. Okay, because you two, I didn't see you. Okay, Dr. Renner is coming back. What happens, Dr. Renner? Okay, let's go. We'll come back to that question. Since Dr. Renner has started, I don't want to pass it on. Bukola Raji is saying, at what age can cataract surgery be performed on a child? Uche, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so you go with the ophthalmologist's recommendation. They are the ones who know what is best, when to take it out, when it's mature, and the rest of them. So go with the ophthalmologist. They are the specialists in that regard.
Okay, thank you. And then I think Dr. Renner is refreshing. Will come. Jane is now giving us, this is a 4-month-old baby that mom wants to increase his height. The weight is 6.8 at 4 months, and the bed's weight is 3.2. And mom is worried that this baby is too small. Uche, what do you think? Uche, are you there? I think you're mute.
Oh, I'm muted. So birth weight of 3.2. You double your birth weight at 6 months and triple it by 1 year. So if by 4 months you are doing 6.8 kg, your child is doing exceptionally well. And about the height, we don't have an idea of the height. But if you look at, like Dr. Renner had mentioned earlier, there are things that are constitutional. Mom is brief like me. Dad is brief. You know, you don't expect to have a long child, except you want to elongate the child. And I don't know that service is available yet. That will stretch you beyond your genetic capacity. So a child that was born 3.2 and 6.8 suggests to me that the child is not malnourished, that the child is feeding properly. So the child should, at this age, also would have attained the height which the child should have. Except there are other things which you haven't told us, But based on information which we have, I don't think you have any concerns with causing the child to eat. The child seems well nourished for the weight that you have provided for us.
Yeah, so Jane, we are happy with the weight of your baby. Dr. Renner, are you back? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you finish your question?
Yes,
Can a
thank you,
breastfeeding
Jerry.
mother treat malaria? If yes, which drug? Okay, so you were saying
Yes.
something else.
Yes, I was saying that as physicians and pediatricians, if there's a condition, and then we can actually treat the condition without administering drugs, we'd rather go the way of not administering drugs than administering drugs. People just imagine that we just like to prescribe, but no, because we understand, as Dr. Boyede has said, that drugs can be harmful. So if you can treat the condition without administering drugs, then that's what we should do. And that's just on a general note. We are not obsessed with prescribing medications. A pregnant mother should treat malaria if malaria is detected. Ideally, you should not assume that you have malaria. You should go to the hospital, get tested, and then if it's positive, then treat. As to what drug you can use, that's entirely up to the physician that is seeing you. We as pediatricians cannot recommend that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I think we're almost done. I'll just take the remaining. We have here somebody from YouTube. Oh, I'm always happy when I see people from YouTube, and that's unique. So Meje from Eswatini. Where is that in the world?
That's Swaziland. I think that's the new name for Swaziland. Yes.
Oh, welcome. Thank you. We love to have people from all over the world. Thank you. Queen has asked us several questions, so she's saying thank you. And then somebody is asking how many doses of MMR. Doses of MMR is 2, and she's 2 years old. She had the first dose at 1 year, 5 months. Usually when they give you the first dose, they should have given you the date for the second dose. So just go with whatever they give you, because I know different people do it differently, but the most important is that the child take 2 doses. So I think that's what I would just say. Okay, let me just take the last set of questions from YouTube. Instagram, and then we can end it there. Somebody is asking, toddler of 2 years, 8 months, refusing food. These are the food the child was liking before, but now it's not liking them. He also doesn't like fruits. What can she do? So, Dr. Uche, can you answer that in 1 minute because of our time?
So 2-year-olds no longer liking food. Maybe
Yes, some
something.
food. Yes, that the child likes
Maybe,
before. Yeah.
maybe something has changed. Just like all of us, you used to like something. You used to like blue today. Suddenly you realize that red is a brighter color, and then you start liking red. It doesn't change in a child. But if that particular food is necessary for the child's growth, you should still find other creative ways to introduce the same food. So puree it, present it in other forms, in more fun ways that the child would have it. But it's not abnormal that the child would love this, gets overwhelmed with it, and suddenly doesn't want it and starts wanting another thing. It's not an abnormal thing, but just find other ways around it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. The next question is somebody said my 6 weeks old went for immunization. She's been crying. What can I do? You already answered your own question that you can give paracetamol, but you want to ask us how many mils of paracetamol syrup can you give? Baby's birth weight is 2 kilos. Current weight is 3.4 kilos on exclusive breastfeeding. 3.4 kilos, 15 times 3.4. It's about 45 thereabouts. So I think that baby can take about 2 mils or 2.5 mils of paracetamol. That will work. Yeah, so you can give that. You can give that every 6 hours. I just want to quickly clear that so that we can move on. Somebody said, can a baby get jaundice at 8 months? Yes, that can happen. But the jaundice Dr. Uche talked about earlier is newborn jaundice. Newborn jaundice is different from what we call is the neonatal from jaundice after newborn period, like the one of 8 months old. So if an 8-month-old has jaundice, I will really want you to go and do the genotype of that child. If there's no other problem like fever or anything, just come back with jaundice. We need to be sure the child is not having sickle cell and all that. All right. Question. Dr. Baby say, please, I want to know how to successfully have a mixed feeding. I'll be resuming work after 3 months, though we did exclusive breastfeeding, and also I've got issue of him not allowing people carrying him. Okay, so the pediatrician, somebody is asking about misfeeding. Okay, let me put that to Renner. What is your advice for this mom? She's resuming work. Oh, and it's the last question.
Yeah,
And
well, man, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Usually, I know of a particular doctor that she had twins. She expressed breast milk down and froze the breast milk for months, and she was able to still breastfeed even after she had resumed work. If that's not something that you have done, but it's something that you can still do, please express freeze and then get somebody to either fill the cup and spoon or bottle. Now, the idea of somebody not her refusing to let somebody else carry at 3 months, really, they have not started to develop stranger anxiety. Anybody that can give them food, they will follow the person. So you too, you need to start to begin to relinquish authority of the child to trusted family members, and so that they can begin to, if you can, so that they can begin to feed the child. If you are unable to do expression and storage and freezing, then of course have a discussion with the pediatrician as to what formula you can actually start, so that that is the option that you can actually use. Please don't start pap. Please don't start pap, because some people, they will now start pap at 3 months. Please don't start pap. Pap should not be started, or something should not be started until the child is at least 6 months. Thank you.
6 months. Thank you so much. I really, really want to thank my guests. They've been so amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Uche. I know you must have squeezed yourself to be here because I know how busy you can be. Yes, thank you so much for sparing us this time to talk to us, answer our questions. We really, really want to appreciate you. I want to thank our noisy Nigerian pediatrician. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Ayodele Renner.
Thank you so much.
Very insightful answers to our questions. I can see that everybody is very happy. They are just, dropping the questions here and there, and we won't be able to take more. We will stop at this point because of time. And we really appreciate all our pediatricians. And I think I would have asked them for one word each, but I think okay, I think take 30 seconds and tell me your final word for the parents. Final word. Okay, let's start with Uche.
Oh, okay. So moms and dads, I want to say well done. You're doing a great job with the children. It's not easy to take care of these children, and big round of applause for you. But I want to encourage you to continue at it, do more, and so that you can ensure that your children, get to their full potential. Well done.
Thank you, Dr. Renner. Your consistency.
It's just to wish ATP again a very happy anniversary, and to thank all the moms on ATP for actually, following and asking questions and challenging us all the time. But for me, this one actually goes out to anybody who knows any politicians or anybody who is in the authority position or who can make policies. Please, the biggest investment of a country is not oil. The biggest investment of the country is not agriculture. The biggest investment a country can make is its children. And I believe that so strongly. Children are the greatest investment any nation can make. And so if we are failing our children, we are failing ourselves, because our future is nothing more than who we raise, right now. And so please tell your politicians that, please, let's make sure that all the policies that they make are child-centered and favor children, so that we can have a great nation in the future, as children are our biggest investments. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Renner. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Tomorrow, I'm going to come with another set of guests, and we're going to be talking about how do we pay for our health, for the health, and all these things we've talked about. I know many of you are saying there's money. Poverty has mentioned poverty. We'll talk about how we can still manage to pay for good health care of our children. So join me tomorrow, same time, 6 p.m. Thank you so much to my guests. Thank you once again for your time. We really appreciate it. God bless you. And it is bye-bye from all of us. See you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. 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 Thank you, Uche. Thank you.